we go. Perfect.
Cool.
All right. Hello, Kavya. How are you doing today?
Hi.
On this lovely evening.
I'm doing all right. Running on a lot of adrenaline right now, so.
Yeah. Did you get a lot of work to do?
Yeah, a lot of work and very little sleep. So I was in New Jersey this morning, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A whole lot to do. I feel you as well.
Yeah.
My last week was pretty busy, but this week is a little bit calmer.
Okay, good.
Especially once I get this beautiful interview done.
Yes.
So we'll start with the first question here, which is, why don't you tell me a little bit about your musical experience? What instruments do you play, or have you played in the past? What genres of music have you kind of been into throughout your entire musical life?
Yeah, so I kind of started singing around the same time as you. When I was 4 years old, my parents put me in Carnatic music lessons, which is a style of Indian classical music, and that was my background for a good portion of my life. And then I started to compete and transition into South Indian film music, so kind of the stuff that you'd hear in like Bollywood movies. And with that, when I was 11, I was on this singing competition show. It's kind of like American Idol, but like for, Telugu songs. Telugu is my native language.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that when I was around 11 years old, and that kind of like kickstarted my whole like professional music life, because since then I've been performing at Indian cultural events around the country and things like that. But since then I have kind of transitioned into Western music. So when I got to high school, I discovered musical theater, and I started doing all the musicals. I had voice lessons. I was doing like, arias and classical. I experimented with like all the Western genres and everything. And my senior year of high school, which was December of 2019, was when I started posting on TikTok. So my first video that went viral was like December, and then 2020 was like a huge year for me, just, getting bigger on TikTok. I started this a cappella group called Ear Candy, made up of 11 members who each had their own platforms. And that was in 2020, so that was kind of like my freshman year of college. So senior year of high school into college. And Ear Candy was a huge thing for me. We ended up doing a Christmas album with Republic Records, which is still out there, so you can listen to it at the Christmas time if you want to. It's called An Ear Candy Christmas. But yeah, so I've kind of dabbled in like a bunch of different genres. I also, growing up for I think 6 years, I learned classical piano, and I had to take all these theory exams, and it was like a whole thing. And I also play guitar, which is more recent. I just started teaching myself around a year ago, and now I take private lessons with Kevin Harding. And so yeah, I've kind of been around the block in terms of like doing a bunch of different types of music, but right now I'm kind of focused on my own songwriting stuff, which is more like in the folk space. And yeah.
Cool. What how did you feel about the transition between going to more classical Indian music to Western music? Did you like that transition? Do you still sing some of that music now, or?
Yeah, so I stopped learning classical music in high school because it became like a source of stress for me. And the teachers are just very strict. Like, I was studying under this disciple of Sudha Raghunathan, who is one of the most famous Carnatic singers in India, and she was very strict with me. And it was like my junior year of high school, and I was like, I can't do it anymore because when like music becomes like a chore and it makes you like want to quit it altogether because you're like, this isn't fun anymore. It was like that for me. So I took a break from that, and that's kind of when I was able to discover all the musical theater stuff, and I really enjoyed it. It was very fulfilling for me, and I felt like because I had that background of Indian classical music, I actually had like a leg up in terms of like vocal techniques and things like that. So the foundation was definitely very useful for me, and I still do sing Indian music, not classical, but more of like the film stuff. Like even this past weekend, for my dad's 50th birthday, I sang a bunch of songs for everybody in like Telugu and Hindi and like all these languages. So it's still a very prominent part of my life, but just not the stuff that I like post online and share with everyone.
Interesting. How was you mentioned a little bit about the rise to fame. Could you go into a little bit more detail about what that was like and how you kind of dealt with all of the new experiences that came with it?
Yeah, I would say 2020 was like a very transformational year for me. And I'm honestly very thankful for all the time that I had during the pandemic, because I would literally just wake up and be like, what am I going to post today? And it was all covers of songs that were trending on TikTok. I currently have around 700,000 followers on the app, and when I started, it was like kind of slow at first, and then it like had these like big bursts of, you know, one video would go viral and I would gain like 100,000 followers in a day, and it would be like it was crazy. It was truly like an unprecedented time for me. And now it's kind of like plateaued a little bit, which has allowed me to focus more on my songwriting. But I would say the rise to fame, I guess, was like pretty jarring and kind of like unexpected, because I mean, nobody really expects to go viral ever, but it was a lot of change that happened really fast. So even when I founded Ear Candy, we started in like July of 2020. Within 3 months, we had hit 1 million followers and we had signed a record deal. And I had actually come to campus for my freshman year. I was here for 4 weeks. And then after 4 weeks, I flew out to LA to go record this album for like a month and a half. And then I wasn't allowed to come back on campus because of COVID protocol. So like basically spent my whole freshman year online. And so that was kind of like, that was what it was like for me, was like sacrificing my studies to be able to pursue this. And now it's, you know, kind of figuring out how I can balance both.
Did you enjoy doing covers, or did you post covers, or did you post mostly originals?
No, it was all covers. Okay. And I still don't post very many originals at this point. It's still very new for me. But it was literally all like short covers of trending songs, and same thing that I would arrange these a cappella arrangements for Ear Candy. It was all just what was trending at the time.
Did you enjoy doing that kind of mainstream cover work, or do you enjoy writing your own songs and performing your own songs?
I would say at the time I definitely did enjoy covering it, because it was a huge source of validation for me too. Like I would cover something and then, you know, an influx of like really positive comments would come in, and it was also fun for me to kind of experiment with how I could take a song and make it my own and still reach that audience in that way. And so I did have a lot of fun with it, but I will say it got old. Like I kind of got tired of catering to what other people wanted to hear from me versus what I really enjoy to sing. And I feel like there's always kind of a little bit of a disconnect there, because my songwriting is kind of so different from the stuff that I was singing. And also songwriting is a very new thing for me. It's been pretty much in the recent year. So at the time I wasn't even really writing originals. It was all just posting short covers on TikTok and not writing at all. And now I've transitioned and I love songwriting so much more, and because of that I've kind of fallen off on TikTok a little bit. So yeah, I would say songwriting right now is way more fulfilling for me.
Oh, that's good to hear. What type of music do you like to to cover and to play as originals or write as originals?
So to cover, I really enjoy R&B and stuff that requires a lot of kind of vocal agility. So yeah, I would say for covering stuff, it's R&B. For songwriting, it's a lot of folk. You asked that, right? Asked about song. Okay. I was like, I forgot the question. Yeah, it's very folk, but the chords are not folk chords at all. So I would say like the style, the instrumentation, even like the song form, everything, like, you know, acoustic vibes, it's all very indie folk, but then the chords are like major to minor and very R&B inspired. So I can't really classify the kind of music that I write very well, but I would say it's a blend of like all of my inspirations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And what would you say, who is your largest influence in terms of the songs that you write now?
I would say Madison Cunningham for sure. I kind of discovered her very recently. It was like at the beginning of this year, somebody sent me one of her songs and I was like, oh my God, who is this girl? And I went down the rabbit hole, and she's just honest. She, like, her mind is, it's just invaluable. Like all of her ideas and everything, and the chords and her melodies and everything were so inspiring to me. And I feel like my songwriting has definitely like transformed in style after discovering her. But I'm also inspired by like artists like Daniel Caesar and, you know, kind of like the classics of, though for chords and things, like I really do enjoy looking to people like that. Mac Ayres is another really great example of that. But definitely Madison Cunningham for sure.
Yeah, there's always one artist that kind of, when you listen to for the first time, I heard this song the other day called Love, but I'm not exactly sure who the artist was. But there's always one type of song or one type of artist that you find that you really like listening to.
Yeah.
Just after that first listen, which doesn't actually happen often to me. I usually have to listen to things over and over
again.
Yeah,
yeah.
But what would you say is the most important aspect of writing a song for you? Is it like the lyrics, the chords, the melody? What do you start with? What is kind of your foundation?
Yeah, okay, good question. Because I feel like I've written songs in many different ways before. There's a lot of times where I have lyrics in my head and I write them all down, and I'll actually just write a song without having any melody, and then I'll add it in. But a lot of times I start with the chords. I think most often I come up with a fun guitar chord progression, whether it's picking or just strumming, and from there I see where my ear goes in terms of melodies. So I would say most often I start off with like the chords, then I find the melodies, and then I add the words. But the most important part to me is definitely the lyrics. I feel that my music has to be authentic, and I don't ever want it to just be cheesy and catering to everybody. And I will spend so much time just trying to find the right word, even just for that one sentence before I move on, because I just can't bear the thought of it being not what I want it to be, you know? So I would say lyrics are definitely like the most important to me.
Is that the hardest part for you as well, the lyric writing, or is it?
Honestly, I feel like because I love writing so much, like I grew up always loving English class and things like that, I think, and poetry, I did so much poetry growing up, so I think it comes a little bit more naturally to me. But I will say I'm very picky about it. So in terms of like being okay with it, that's the hardest thing for me. Yeah.
Very understandable.
Mm-hmm.
So my next question for you is, who do you like performing with? Out of all the people you've performed with so far or worked with so far, who do you like performing with or working with the most, and why? And it doesn't have to be someone I know. It can be anyone.
Okay.
It can be an unnamed person.
Yeah. I would say I really enjoy performing with Charles Myers. He's a guitarist based in New York. And he and I met a few years ago at a jam session for, musicians in the area. And since then, we've worked on some of my original music together. He's also a producer, so he's kind of produced a few demos for me and things, but nothing that's actually been released. But he is one of the most talented guitarists I have ever met and gotten the chance to work with. We did a show together in, I want to say like 1 or 2 years ago at Rockwood Music Hall in New York. And that was a show with Tiny Habits and Rich. I don't know if you know those artists, but
I haven't heard of them before.
but yeah, they're pretty cool. So that was like the first time I ever got to like perform with him at an actual show. But he and I will perform at like random get-togethers and things when I'm back in New York. So I would say he's definitely my favorite person to perform with.
Cool, very cool. My last question for you is, what would be your song of choice if you had to re-listen to one song, not hearing it?
Right. What's the song I had in mind? Oh, Won't Live Here by Daniel Caesar. That song, I don't know, do you know that song?
I do. Clavon showed it to me the other day.
Oh my God.
Like, it's like multiple different songs in one, but
exactly.
It's so beautiful.
It's so beautiful. Every direction that it goes in was just like, I wish I could hear that again for the first time, because I just remember having such a like deep emotional response to it. Also, Daniel Caesar can just do no wrong with his choices.
Like, beautiful chords. Always some really beautiful kind of jazzy chords that I think.
And it just works so well.
And with his voice too, beautiful mix. He can transition so well.
I'm seeing him in concert with Clavon. Actually,
I'm seeing him in concert as well.
Wait, are you going to the same?
God!
Wait, we should all go together.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to interview you. And
yeah.
Yeah.